Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hello everybody and welcome to another weekly wrap up, and this week we have another heavy hitter, double duty, 2 weeks worth of reading because I did have a vacation last week. Thankfully I was able to pre-film, so hopefully you guys didn't miss out on too much content. But it is summertime and, I actually have a few trips planned. And next week is the 4th of July and I'll also be out of town for that weekend. So it looks like this summer is having a lot of double hitters. But I think that this next weekend's the last weekend that I'm gone. I have a few other times where there's some day trips going on or week trips. But there will also not be a weekly wrap up next week. There'll be a double after that. But hopefully you guys like this because I know most of you enjoy my longer videos. At least that's what my stats tell me anyway. But I mean, I sure like when I'm able to weekly wrap up because it makes my editing and my life a little bit easier when I don't have, as it is today, 12 books to talk about, So it was a bit slow reading on my trip, which is to be expected, right? But I did also still get through a lot. And boy, do I have some, I won't say they're controversial because I haven't heard anybody truly really disagree with me, but I have some intense views on a few of these. So it's going to be an interesting ride. But before we get into that, we do have some new supporters to welcome. To YouTube, I want to welcome Isabella H. Thank you so much for being a channel member. That means the world to me. And then for Patreon, we have Ellen and we have Steph MT, who both joined to support on Patreon. So thank you so, so much. I know that it is a sacrifice for anyone to support someone's work because it's tough out there. There's no joke about it. It is. So whenever I see new supporters, my heart is always warmed by it. So thank you so much for allowing me to do what I do here. The fact that I wake up every day and do this job is a serious pinch me situation. Tiny sidetrack because we have a lot to get through. But last night I was able to go to a game night with some newer friends I've made. And that comes with talking about your job usually. And to see some people be a little bit jealous and a little bit, they have questions about how I'm able to do this for a living. And it's always so weird to explain because it's kind of, it's straight up, it's off the generosity of others, but I've built, it sounds cliche too, but I've built a community who, for some reason, we all like the same things and you enjoy what my takes are on these things, so much so that I've been able to make it my career, which is just wild. So thank you so much to everyone, and let's go ahead and get into it. Okay. So I down here have my notes just to double check down here. So the first thing that I read though, I can't really talk about because it is a secret project. What I can tell you, because it has been announced at least now, is I read a secret project for Claire Kent, aka Noelle Adams, and I did share about when it was announced. So there is a dystopian romance collab that Claire is going to be a part of. It includes Elizabeth Stevens and Adriana Herrera and Allie Hazelwood, which is just amazing. And it is going to be this dystopian Kickstarter situation where each author wrote a dystopian novel that's all within the same universe, okay? And it each deals with a different aspect of, of a dystopian world. And there's going to be a Kickstarter where you're able to, as from what I can tell, this hasn't been directly told to me, this is just my inference, it'll be the type where you can pick if you want the entire collection, or you can pick pick 2, pick 4 of the total of what you want, and there will be these special editions you can get. Now eventually, and this is the part that is super secret, eventually, Claire will get Noelle will get the rights back to this, and then it will be printed herself in her dystopian world. But it will be exclusive to the Kickstarter to begin with. So this was supposed to be a read for me to do on my vacation. She gave it to me right before, and literally the night before my vacation, I finished it. all in one sitting because it was just so exciting. So I can't tell you what it's about or what hers is. I believe that her title is getting announced this week. But if you follow the After the End Instagram, they're announcing the books and the tropes for each author in a rollout situation. But yeah, I can't spoil any of that because then I would lose, you know, some privileges of being a PA. But I read that. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for it to be out there for everybody else. And getting to read that one like so early was truly, I was like pinching myself. It was so fun to get to be a part of that. So that was the first thing that I read. Next up, I had an ALC, and then when I got back from vacation, I got my physical copy in the mail, but I had an ALC of The Edge of Surrender, if you don't know, an advanced listening copy, so I had an early audio of At the Edge of Surrender. This one is out now. Let me show you. The paperback cover has this cover, but I did receive, as I said, a release box from her. She is so generous with the influencers who support her and readers who read her, and I just love that about Amy. But this is book 3 in the Moonlit Ridge series, and this one was a surprise single dad. And it was funny because, you know, I talk about how I don't love secret baby situations. And one of the like secret baby situations that I do like is when the secret baby, it isn't the heroine who kept the baby a secret, right? Often we see this as someone has died and now the hero finds out he had a kid, okay? That's the way I've seen it, right? There's a Willow Aster that, as far as I know, that was the first time I read it. I've since read it a couple other times. But in this one, it's the same scenario. It's a sister, and when her sister dies, she shares with her sister, Emery, who the father of her baby is, and she asks her to take her daughter, or Emery's niece, to meet her father. And Emery is very like resistant to do this, but she does want to honor her sister's wishes, even though she's kind of like worried about who this dude is, okay? Because he does run a bar and he is an ex-biker, and she's like, do I trust this guy with my niece? And she's very nervous about like, she's not moving there with her niece in the beginning. That's what she says anyway. Okay, like this is a romance, so of course it's going to work out. But she is supposed to, you know, introduce the two of them, stay until her niece feels comfortable, and then like she's supposed to go back to her life because she is a small business owner as well, and she's left that business in the hands of her mother and some employees so that she can go and do this. But, you know, as you may assume, that's going to be a much more difficult task than Emery can ever think, because when she meets Kane, and they get to know each other, which of course they have almost a one-night stand with each other before she knows who he is and everything. Because she meets him, they fool around actually at a bar one night. And then the next day she goes to the address of the guy she's supposed to meet, and it's the guy that she fooled around with. So she's like, well, how great can this guy be if he was fooling around with chicks he just met? Which I'm like, I rolled my eyes a little bit because I'm like, girl, A, how do you think your sister got pregnant with this guy that she barely knew if she wasn't doing it too? And B, like, let's not judge until we know. But this series, I do put it under contemporary romance, but the series does kind of edge towards dark. The reason why I still kind of keep it, it's like suspense romance, is because the romance between the characters is rarely dark. It's usually the world is a little dark, right? Because the Sanctum, which is the secret society that Kane and the other guys are a part of, they actually like rescue people, specifically like women and children, from bad situations. So they are, you know, like vigilante do-gooders, right? And so they're not really dark. Now, this one did have a bit, you know, there still always is like a third act kidnapping in them. So I really put these under suspense romances where they fit. But loved it. This was narrated by Jason Clark and Aaron Mallon. It was in dual style. It was wonderful. I enjoy this series. They are very, as always, I tell you, they're very lyrically written. And so I always suggest audio, because when you read that lyrical writing, it can feel a bit overwhelming and be a bit much. But I find that in audio, I like it a good amount. So I gave this one 4.5 stars, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. Very sweet, an adorable little girl. Loved watching Kane get to know her. Loved Emery and Kane together. And I love the whole found family and all of that. So as I was going to say too, we very quickly got back to a single dad. It's kind of a joke / not a joke that Amy pretty much only writes single parents. Like, that is her thing that she does. And the book number 2 in the series was like the only book from hers I'd ever read that didn't have a single parent of some kind. And we went right back to it, which is fine. That is where she fits and everything works well. Okay, next up was The Overtime Kiss by Lauren Blakely. And thank you so much to, I believe Becky sent me these. I don't have the tag in it, but thank you so much to Becky for sending me a copy of this, which was just perfect for me to have for my wrap-up this week. But this one is book 5 in the Love and Hockey series, which before I get further in, she has announced 2 more books in this series, which is kind of crazy. I was not expecting that. I thought this was supposed to be the last one because she has a new series starting. But there will be The Flirting Game, and for sure another one. But then there's also the My Favorite Holiday, which is out, which is a spinoff from this one. So anyway, this one is a single dad. It's a divorced single dad with, I think he has 2 kids, and also one where like he has a good relationship with the mother, but she is going to medical school and he's a hockey player. And so he's agreed, because of how, you know, how much she stood by him in the beginning of his career, that he wants her to be able to advance her career. And so he's taken on the bulk of the responsibility with their kids while she's going to medical school. And that means that he needs a nanny. Now, in the beginning of the story, he has a nanny. And our heroine, sorry, where's her name here? Sabrina. She's actually a coach to his daughter, because she was I don't think she made it to the Olympics, but she's a professional skater. And in the beginning of this book, she is about to get married. Like every cliche under the sun, we discover that her boyfriend, or her man, was cheating on her. She was mostly going to marry him because her parents had really pushed them together anyway, mostly her dad. And when she finds the guy cheating, again, like every cliche under the sun, her dad tells her to like, well, just get over it. Like, who cares? He can cheat. He can do whatever he wants. You're marrying him because I'm telling you to, right? And I always roll my eyes at this so hard. I'm like, authors, why do the parents have to be okay? Like, I don't know. I know it's supposed to be a thing that her dad is kind of gaslighting you and stuff, but I guess it just feels like such a repeated thing, you know? Like, there is a, with the runaway bride part and them acting like that, there's another book. Oh, it was in the Piper Rain one. Same thing. There's a runaway bride, and the parents and the fiance are like, well, you weren't seeing to my needs the way I wanted you to, so of course I was cheating, but you still gotta marry me for looks and everything. And you're just like, what a stupid reason. But anyway, but she runs away from that wedding, and then her dad cuts her off because she does that. And it's not because she hasn't been working, but she was working for the family business. And so to have him like kick her off and out, like he's basically firing her at the same time. So it's not like she was just this spoiled little rich girl who had it cut off, you know. And she has worked super, super hard. She wouldn't be where she is at with her career if she was a slacker by any means. But her parents have never supported her as a skater. They always wanted her to be more practical. And now they've just cut her off because she didn't marry who they wanted her to. And so she really has to hustle. And so she tries to expand her skate lessons, and she tries to pick up other like odd jobs. And so she's doing a lot to hustle and everything. And when actually, like, I should mention this too, the day that she runs away from her wedding, she ends up at this bar at a resort a ways away, and the hero happens to be there because he did a day of golfing with his friends, and then he's having a drink at the bar at this country club afterwards, and they run into each other. And again, they already know one another, and he's had a crush on her kind of since he met her, and they almost hook up, but he doesn't let it go that far because he doesn't want to be disrespectful, but his attention is piqued because he's like, I didn't want to make a move on her because we were like drinking that night. But then he goes to see her the next day, or it might be a little while after, and he's going to ask her out, and she immediately is apologizing for what she did and saying, I'm so sorry, and please don't let this ruin, you know, me being the coach for your daughter, and blah, 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 all that stuff. And so he's like, oh, so she doesn't want to do anything. Got it. And so he steps back from it. But as I said, she's trying to hustle to find these other jobs, and it ends up coming up that his nanny quits. And could it be that she could become the nanny, and there's a place for her to like live on his property and be the nanny? So we get one of those. So this is a super thick book, as Lauren Blakely does. This ends up being eventually how their relationship progresses, is that they end up agreeing to a short time sexy experiment together, which it just seemed weird. Because she had this list of basically sex acts that she wanted to do that her partner didn't do with her, and blah, 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 blah. And we're only going to have sex until we've done these like 5 acts or whatever. And so it was just a weird setup for a sex deal. Not that sex deals ever make a ton of sense, but it was just a weird one. I did love the like friends to lovers aspect of them. That is something this series has excelled at, in my opinion anyway. I really love how Lauren Blakely builds up the relationship between the two. I'm not saying this is only sex by any means. It's not. That is their like thin excuse to be able to sleep together, is like, oh, well, we'll just do these acts and then we'll be able to just be friends, right? But I'm rolling my eyes so hard because it just didn't fit. But I'm by no means saying that this is like a sex forward. That's all it is. I just think it was very clunky how that was handled. And I loved the relationship between them and how easy their banter was. And I think the sexual tension and chemistry is really good. It's just once they started having sex, it was like, why are they being stubborn about this relationship, right? Yeah, and then this one had probably the weakest third act conflict in the series for me. So as you can tell, this one was not my favorite, and I feel a bit bad for it in one aspect because book 4 was a 6-star book and I had very high hopes for this one, but it was not completely awful. And the audiobook was another duet narration. This one was Teddy Hamilton and Brooke Bloomingdale, and the productions of this series has been so good. But I did give this one 4 stars, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. This did have a fun kink using temperature play, which I thought was cool. I'll just tell you how they did it because temperature play isn't always something we see in books. But it actually involved her giving him a blowjob, and she was literally like eating a popsicle, getting her lips and tongue cold, and then like giving him a blowjob. And that was a pretty hot scene using temperature play. I thought that was fun. But yeah, I gave that one 4 stars. Okay, next up, there was Thorns from the Fall by Jess Wisecup, which is a extremely anticipated read for me. Feathers from the Sky was a wonderful vampire slash vampire slayer hunter romance. I really enjoyed that book. I thought Jess did some super surprising things with it. So I was highly anticipating this one. And unfortunately, it was a huge miss for me. Okay. I don't want to, well, no, I mean, I'm going to tell you why I didn't like it, but I just want to not go on like a full tangent for it and be like respectful to this. But at the same time, I don't know what this was, okay? So if you've read Feathers from the Sky, or maybe you were waiting to read it till you got part 2, and that's why I like hesitate to do this, because I honestly like still want people to read book 1 so bad. And maybe you won't have the same issues with book 2 that I did. I just found it to be pretty messy, and getting to the conclusion of the story felt very difficult. So it was just weird. But so yeah, Feathers from the Sky had this crazy cliffhanger ending. Like, it was the kind where, like, I was actually thrilled to be reading it because I thought that the twist and the reveals were planned so well, and we had an unreliable narrator, so there are some things you weren't able to see, but it isn't so unreliable that the author was fully lying to you. It's just that the heroine is literally, like, again, not to spoil everything, but the heroine is playing a particular role. And because it's first person POV and because some vampires can read your mind, she has to fully believe her role. And so, anyway, again, not to ruin the whole thing, but that's what made that work for me. And when I was reading that book, I was actually messaging Jess, the first one. And I was like, oh my God, that was so clever. Because once you finish it and you go back to certain scenes, it's not that the heroine lies to you, but even in her own mind, you can see these kind of like hoops that she's jumping through. And you at the time are kind of just like, okay, well, that's a weird way to think about that, whatever. But when you go back, you realize that she has thought through this so well that she doesn't want anything in her mind or in her subconscious to tip off these evil beings what is really going on. So anyway, let's just say I had high respect for Feathers from the Sky. I had no idea what was coming with that. And it was still brutal. It was very sexy, but it was a captive. She's a daughter of vampire hunters, and she, there's this thing where, like, our parents have went at each other. It's a generational feud because it's hunters versus vampires, and she gets taken captive is kind of the whole point. Roman, the hero vampires, is trying to get a revenge for what happened to his brother. His brother's disappeared. He's pretty sure his brother's dead, and he believes that Gwen has or knows or has some info about this. And he's just supposed to, like, torture her and kill her based on orders from his uncle, who's kind of like a vampire overlord. But he doesn't want to kill her. He ends up kidnapping her. So book 1 is him having kidnapped her. Now book 2, again, without totally spoiling it, there were a bunch of reveals. And let's just say that any, like, romantic progress these two had been making, a lot of it gets ruined at the start of book 2, okay? So we're having to kind of start, not at square one, but worse than that, because now we're having to, fix a lot of bad shit that happened, right? So, yeah. And again, I don't want to get into necessarily the plot things that I didn't like. I'm going to talk about some kind of side things that I didn't like. Number 1, because of said, like, issues between the two of them, there is a nickname that Roman starts calling Gwen to kind of show his anger and his, like, hatred of her. And that nickname completely spoiled the hotness and sexiness of Roman for me, okay? I'm going to tell you what it is, and you're going to see why, okay? The nickname that Roman calls Gwen at the start of book 2 is Cockroach. Yep. You know how in some, like, think of Rena Kent, where they'll say, like, little devil or little liar or something like that. Like, there'll be a diminutive term that it starts out as kind of a pessimistic thing. Again, like saying a little girl or sweetheart, and they're saying it sarcastically to be as a dig, but as you read the story, it becomes a term of endearment instead. And so by the end, when he's calling her sweetheart, it feels soft and you're like, it's his love is shown through that word. Or little devil, right? That is still, supposed to be a diminutive term when it's used, but by the end, it's like, you're my little devil, or like, I love you, or whatever it is, okay? You know what I mean. When there's a pet name that starts out annoying, or it starts out to be a diss, or the heroine hates it, and by the end, it is this symbol of affection. Jess Wisecup tries to do that with Cockroach, and I'm not shitting you. The word cockroach, if you will search it, I believe you see it between 20 and 20. I think 23 is the number that it's in there. All the way up until the end of the book, he's calling her Cockroach. And at the end, near the end of the book, there is this little passage about how, like, cockroach in the, like, ancient language they use is actually this, like, term of strength because the cockroaches are the only thing that survive. I don't care. When the romantic interest is calling his female love interest cockroach, there's no way you can make that sexy for me. And I don't know how. No one pointed that out. No one pointed that out. And if they did, why did it not get changed? Because as I say, I loved Roman in book 1. He is honestly full-on villain in there. Though you have some very like tenderish feelings towards him because you know he's doing this for his brother. You also see the dynamics of the vampires and that it is a dog-eat-dog world out there and it is vicious, and he does his best to like protect Gwen and blah blah blah. And so going into this book, I understood why he would be angry. I had like just all this stuff based on stuff that happens, but then for him to call her cockroach and keep it up for 370 pages, I lost so much respect. And I'm telling you right now, when I tell you what my rating for this book is, 1 whole star was taken off because of that nickname, because it grated on my nerves 23 times. Okay. Like I said, I wasn't going to go. It ruined Roman for me more than anything else. I'm just telling you, it did. Again, that is an authorial choice. I just don't know how that didn't think in, right? And now I didn't listen to the audiobook of book 1, but I know there's an audiobook of this book being made. Tell me how when you listen to this book, you're going to feel good about Roman when he's like, cockroach, stay out of my way. Or like, you don't know what you've done, cockroach. Like how is cockroach supposed to sound romantic by the end? No matter what little excuse got put out about like, oh, it's actually a term of strength. And I was really using it as a term of strength the whole time because cockroaches are clever and they survive. Like, no. And before sex scenes calling her that. Anyway, okay, moving along. That was a major thing, okay? As you can tell, I am fiery about it. I am not over it. I hated that, okay? But then putting that aside, because I'm like, okay, that's a choice I'm not going to be in favor of. You know, it was clear that that nickname was sticking around, so I was like, okay, look for other stuff. So some of the other things that were tough about this one is that I know there's a plan. Like, we find out Gwen's plan and everyone's cumulative plan, like why the events of book 1 happen and all that stuff. And then I feel like we just got stuck in a mud where like the gears just like wouldn't turn, and I felt like no progress was made for a huge chunk of the book. We just had Roman being broody and angry that he still wants to fuck Gwen. Gwen, we're getting more to this, really dealing with her mental health, a lot of self-hatred. Is it all worth it? What am I doing? And then she's being like, I still want Roman, but how will he ever want me after I've betrayed him this way? But I still want him after he betrayed me this way. Can he still? And so they're both just in there a lot of the time separate from each other, feeling this like conflicted about loving their enemy stuff. Okay. And so they're separated for a lot of this book. They're like dreaming about each other at different times. There are a few times where they cross paths, but they're separated and talking to other people about each other for a good chunk of the book. And I just don't think that's a smart thing in a romance in general. You know, there's that thing of like, get your characters together as soon as you can and find ways to keep them together for as much of the book as you can. And I know this is a second in a duet and we had to have conflict, but like, man, there's already enough conflict after the secrets that are revealed. Like, we got stuff we got to work through. And yeah, it just was a lot. So that was another aspect. And then the final aspect I've saved till last because this is the one that to me is the most subjective. Again, in my opinion, please tell me if you've read this, if cockroach was okay for you, right? I don't feel like that's a subjective thing. I think objectively that was a stupid choice to use, you know, to say it more than one time. For it to become the endearment never was going to work. And I don't, like, every person I've told about it so far has been like, what? So I think that's objectively a dumb choice. I also think objectively it's really risky and not the smartest to keep your characters apart for most of the book, okay? But the subjective part for me was how heavy the mental health was in this, okay? And I say that one's subjective because A, Jess Wisecup has said the whole time how much not only these books, but her other books are about mental health. That is a huge part of what she puts into her stories. So I'm not saying that can't be a focus of a book. Gwen has a messed up head. And what is that messed up head like when you now have supernatural powers and you possibly will live a very, very, very long time? It's going to get dark in your head. Okay, we've already known about her suicidal ideations and her dark thoughts. That's been there. That is compounded times 10 in this one, right? She's fixating on it. There are multiple moments of thinking of well, there is self-harm that happens. There's risky behavior, both sexually and otherwise, putting herself in danger so that if she died, she just wouldn't care about it. Almost, I know she's not doing this to egg Roman on, but a lot of her like self-sabotage and like putting her in those places is things that get Roman to like react. Again, I don't think she's doing any of these things for attention. It doesn't feel like it is that. It's truly like, who do you go to when you are a supernatural being and are having mental health issues, okay? You can't just take medicine generally that's going to help. Like, her body doesn't metabolize it the same way now. Like, there are reasons why. So that's why this is subjective, because some people, this journey might be a journey you're familiar with. And so Jess touching on this is going to be really powerful to you, right? So at the end of the day, that stuff wasn't things that I deducted for, but I'm just letting you know I didn't enjoy that, and it made it very hard to get through. Again, that stuff is fully trigger warning. It's fully talked about. She's not hiding the bag about it. It's there. But there is a suicide in here of different character, but there is also, again, in my opinion, at least 2 times that Gwen tries to do it. You could say maybe they were very like half-hearted attempts, but there are 2 times that I feel that if like someone hadn't have stopped it, it would have happened. And there's multiple times where she's thinking about it. So I didn't enjoy reading that so much. And particularly the actual unaliving of oneself that happens to a character in here. I do not know why that happened. Again, okay. Yes, I know. I don't know why that happens in real life either. But in this book, it was so out of the blue. And it was just, why was it there? And that felt like a gratuitous unaliving to me of this character who did that. And at that point, I was so close to the end, like, because it's like a penultimate thing that happens, that I did finish it. But I'm just telling you, I probably would have DNF'd it if that had happened earlier in the book, because there was already so much heavy mental health stuff in here. And then to drop in that suicide when it was almost like unbearable to read because of the effect it has on someone else and what it means. So yeah. So anyway, this ended up being a pretty big miss for me, because while there are aspects of it that, again, those are Jess's choices for the story that they're writing, and it is very powerful in some aspects, it was just one thing on top of another that made this book extremely unenjoyable, right? At the end of the day, this is still a romance. I know it's a dark one, but I didn't even feel why they were together by the end, because we had I know we had to deal with the fallout of like the hatred of each other and the stuff that happened in book 1, but it lasted for so long in the book that when did they have romance? When did they reconcile over the stuff they were going through? They basically fuck the shit out of each other multiple times. And there specifically is a scene that lasts about 5 chapters where Gwen just lets Roman do absolutely fuck all to her body as kind of penance for her betrayal, I guess. He's able to like spit, spank, fuck her in the ass, like choke her. They both bite each other because they're like just everything. And like, again, that's part of a dark romance, all those kinky things we're getting to, but it also felt like a punishment. And I just wasn't, I don't know where they fell in love in this story. You know, I was believing it in book 1, but for how much hate there was in this one, I wasn't there. So all that said, this ended up at a 3 for me, and it's a 4 on the spice scale. There's that, like, as I said, there's that one sex scene that's like 4 chapters, but other than that, it's actually a lot of dream stuff, which I don't generally count as like real sex scenes when, anyway, time to move along. But it just felt like a very fizzled end to a duet that I loved. And a little bit sadly, I had already pre-ordered a beautiful copy of book 2 from her store before I finished the book. And I almost wish that I hadn't ordered it, because I don't know that I'll ever want to read that book again. But I do so support Jess, so it's not the end of the world or anything. But honestly, I wasn't that taken with it, let's just say. Okay, next up, there was, which I just got my copy when I got back, which was great. There was Empire of Seduction by Mila Finelli. So this is book 2 in A New York State of Mind. And it was so thrilled because when I signed up for the arc of this, I actually received a message from Mila, aka Joanna Shoup's PA, asking if I would like a physical copy sent to me. And I was like, hell yeah. And now I never had to ask this, but I was crossing my fingers that it would be the man cover, because I do have the man cover of all of her other Mafia books. And when I opened it, I was so happy. So here is Empire of Seduction. And then it did come with a art print of the 2 of them, which I love. Our heroine's in her like emo shirt, and we have Vito right there. So this, as I said, is book 2 in the New York State of Mafia. And this one is another scenario of a hero basically taking over the heroine's business. I don't know if that's supposed to be the theme of this series, but it's kind of what this one was, right? In book 1, I think, I can't remember the hero's name now, but he basically rescues her, like, her business. But in this one, our hero kind of steals the business. So Vito ends up winning a controlling stake in Maggie's family winery. Her brother gambles and loses it all to him, and he ends up with a, like, I don't know, 70% ownership in the winery or something. Now, Vito, like, he had a plan going in. He wasn't specifically trying to, like, steal this from them out of any malice. He just wants to expand his family business into this winery, and he saw that this one wasn't doing that well. And so he was able to basically egg Vito, Vito is his name, to egg the brother into risking the family winery, and he wins it. And when Maggie finds out about this, she is so fucking angry, which who wouldn't be? And she basically is like, no, 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 no. She absolutely refuses. And Vito is like, girl, don't you know I'm part of the mafia? He doesn't say that right away. He's like, you don't just get to say no. And her brother, who apparently thinks he's still trying to, like, protect her from this knowledge, is like, sis, I'm sorry, I fucked up, but, like, he owns this now. Let's just make the best of it. And what's interesting too is Vito, he's not trying to completely force them out. He really is trying to, like, he will still let them work there. He'll still let them, you know, be around, but he wants to make this profitable, and he wants to make it like a part of his empire, right? Now, also to say this, Vito is the middle brother in, like, Enzo's family. Okay, so Enzo, we have right here, Enzo from Mafia Madman. This is his, like, middle brother, who is kind of the calm one, okay? And then they have a younger brother, and there's a sister as well. So this book is about him. Now, one other thing to say, these two actually had a one-night stand before they knew who each other was. It was super hot. And so when Maggie finds out the guy who, like, bought the family, or, like, who stole the family business, she thinks he was, like, a plant there. And he's like, no, this was absolutely just a coincidence type of thing. But yeah, so the thing with this one, Maggie definitely is fierce, okay? And there are, for good parts of this book, why I understand how fierce she is, like, for sure. Because he does just pop up, and her brother loses this to them. The winery isn't doing well. and she's just so angry that Vito has taken it. But they do end up in kind of a like, he's not supposed to be there forever. He's just trying to get the winery set up in the way now that he wants it to. And then he's going to go back to his center of operations. But of course, him and Maggie end up in this, you know, this fight of personalities and all this craziness, and it's very difficult for him to want to leave her, type of thing, right? They end up being fuck buddies, like enemies to lovers situation. And the thing is, though, is that also Vito has gotten on the wrong side of a biker gang in town, and the territory that he's in is actually the territory of the hero from book 1, but he's on a extended vacation with his new bride, of course, who's the heroine from book 1, and so he keeps having conversations with him on the phone where he's like, are you messing up my territory while I'm gone? He's like, no, I'm not, and then shit keeps happening. So yeah, this was a fun read. I gave this one a 4.5 star. I really did. It was around a 4-star, because Maggie does go too hard for too long, in my opinion. But then when the story has a turn and the hero really like wins the heroine back over for me, he really went above and beyond, and that's the type of stuff I like to see. So I did give this one a 4.5 that I rounded to a 5. It's a 4 on the spice scale. This one did end up having a super hot anal scene, and one thing I'll say is that Vito loves eating pussy, okay? Like, I'm just telling you. I've said it. It's out there. This man craves it, and it was pretty sexy sometimes, okay? I'm just saying. So, there was that one. Available now for you. I set my books up here. It's getting warm in here, so we got to keep it going. We're only halfway done. Then there was A Royal Mile, which, I mean, this one I won't talk about too long, so we'll get through this one quick. But this one's also out. This is book 2 on Dublin Street. This one is about Sebastian and Lily, and they have a really confusing relationship on here. Like, let me read this. It says, they are enemies to friends to lovers. And in this one, it's a senior year at college. And the British royal family is Sebastian. Thorn is like distantly in line for the throne. And he is determined to be her friend after he does some stuff that like pisses her off. And so he literally goes about really trying to become her friend. But then we have this like weird kind of split time thing, because we see him like they're friends, and then there's something that he does that makes them not be friends, and now he's trying to be her friend again. So it's a weird thing. And then it's also a thing where he doesn't stay with women, so they're only going to be friends. They're not going to sleep together, because if they sleep together, then he can't still be her friend and all that stuff. So this is one, like, this was too long. This was really drawn out. Of course, I love the narration. This one was dual narrated by Shane East and Zara Hampton Brown. So, like, that was nice. But, like, I didn't really understand the push and pull between them. The reason he wanted to be her friend was kind of strange. He literally just picked a random girl and thought she was fun and wanted to be her friend. And for her, there's also this aspect of, like, she's never had men who really like respected her and were like the one for her, even though she's in like a relationship podcast with friends. She's had really bad experiences in the past, and he like, it's hard to describe, like, how do I say this, like, I don't know, he just does that whole thing of like, no, I'm your friend, we can't be more than that. And for her, she's like, but you're everything I want in a man, and you're telling me we can't be together because you have commitment issues. It stinks. It doesn't pass the smell test. So yeah, this was way too long. It's written, you know, new adult. This series is like new adult. And I didn't care for this couple like I have for others from this author. So I gave it a 4 because it was an arc. It was a 3 on the spice scale. And I just wasn't that impressed with Sebastian. And Lily, I really felt for her because she's been through some stuff. But yeah. Next up, there was Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. I had an ALC and an ARC of this one. or no, I just had an ALC. But I hadn't finished it before the book came out, so I grabbed the KU to help me finish it. This was one I was listening to on vacation, and I gotta tell you, it was long. Now, I had actually been approached about this arc, and I had just read the Wingman for my Patreon, and I loved the Wingman, by the way. Spoiler, that full review is available on my Patreon, but I really liked that book. And so when I was asked if I wanted an ALC of Gloves Off, I said yes, because this couple was kind of set up in that one, and I had just read The Wingman, so I was like, sure. And so it did take me a while to get to this one, though. I saved it to listen to it on vacation, and I enjoyed this a good amount. I really did. But this one also, it's a theme in this one. This one was very long. It was a very slow burn. It was an enemies to lovers, but it's one of those where it was enemies based on assumptions, though they did truly feel like enemies. But this was also a marriage of convenience. She needs to be married to get access to a trust fund, and he needs to get married to get citizenship pushed through for him and his parents. So they're in Canada. I think this is a Canadian, yeah, because I think it's the Vancouver Storm is the name of it, if I'm not mistaken. And he needs citizenship for him and his parents to be pushed through, and it will make it easier if he's married to a citizen. And again, he thinks she is a doctor, and she was actually a team doctor who had recommended him for retirement, and so he hates her because of that, and she hates him because he hates her. So it's a weird thing. And he also thinks she is a rich, spoiled girl because she likes pretty shoes, and she spends her money on fancy shoes, and so he thinks she's a spoiled rich girl because I think of her last name. But what he doesn't know is that she does have a fancy last name, and she does have this trust fund she'll get access to if she's married. But it's because her parents were like teen parents, and her parents got, I think it's the dad, they got cut off because they stayed together and had her. So she has a wealthy last name, and she will get this payout when she gets married. She was put in a trust fund by her grandparents, but she doesn't have any independent wealth. Her parents are successful now, but they're like middle class family, and they were poor when they were young because her parents just had each other and their little girl, and that's what they had, you know? So they both made assumptions. She thinks he's arrogant, grumpy asshole, but when they find out from, like, there's mutual people who are like, hey, you both basically need a spouse to help you out, marry each other. And so they end up doing a fake marriage that they try to make most people believe is real, but of course they can't stand one another. So it is funny, though, how it's played off, because there's a lot of people who are like, I knew it. I knew there was sexual tension between you two. I'm not surprised you secretly fell in love and got married. And they're like, yeah, sure. That's what happened. So that was cute. And this did end up winning me over because it is a very slow burn between the two of them. But what was tough is that, yes, they hate each other, but they're mentioning that they hate each other all the time. Like, that was tough in the beginning, right? Like, I get it. We're showing they don't like each other. They're forced to do this marriage of convenience to, like, help out with things, but, like, it was aggressive and it was annoying, okay? How much they mention that they hate each other. Like, in every chapter from each of their POVs, they're like, oh, I loathe her. Oh, her smile is making me mad. Like, constantly reminding us. And I'm like, yo, I know you hate each other and you're gonna love each other by the end. I get it. But it was so long. Like, this book was so long. The audiobook, I think, was like, oh, dude, I'll be wrong. It was between 12 and 14 hours or something. Maybe I made that up, but it was a long audiobook, and I had it out up to like a 2.2 sometimes, and it took freaking ever. Granted, again, I was listening to this on the road trip, so it was off and on when I could listen, but I finished 2 other audiobooks on the road trip, and they went like faster, and this one just like would not move, okay? So I ended up with a 4, though, because as I said, I know I complained about that, but they really won me over at the end because of the slow burn part. It isn't that they hated each other I had a problem with. It was the way that we, like, repeatedly mentioned it, but I loved it. She has 2 bunnies that move in with them, and their names are Stefan and Damon. If you know, you know. And at one point he overhears her talking to Stefan and Damon in her room, and he thinks she's talking on the phone to them. And he's like, you can't date other men. And she's like, what are you talking about? But she definitely plays it up for a while before she explains to him that I'm not secretly seeing men behind your back. Those are my bunnies. Like, that was clever. It was cute. So I ended up at a 4 with it because, again, that stuff might not annoy you guys the way it did me. And if you're able to read it in a more streamlined fashion than I was, I also don't think it would annoy you as much as it did me. That was just how it played out for me, that it took a while to get through. But I liked it by the end, and I gave it 4 stars, and it was a 3 on the spice scale, or 3.5 on the spice scale. Why did I give it that? I think there was some extra fun time in this one. There was a few scenes that were super hot. I think he gets a bit dominant. Yes, that's what it is. There is a bit of like dominance in him that she's a very like strong, bossy woman. And when he gets a little bit demanding with her, she likes it. And there is the first time they have sex. I should say this. The first time that they have sex, he A, forgets to ask her about protection. So he gets risky. And B, he doesn't let her come because he's mad at her. Like, oh, that's right. That's why I gave this 3.5. I was trying to remember why I did. The first time they have sex is like in a closet at an event, and they're just so angry they end up fucking, and he's like, you're not gonna come. This one's for me. This is for me. He says that to her. And she thinks it's so hot. And then like she's pissed, but she's like, whew, I think I want to make him mad again sometime. So that was hot. And it's a slow burn to get to that is the thing. So yeah. Okay. Moving it along here. Next up, there was Protect Home by Indy Valentine. This is an easy one to say because I had a beta read of this one, so I'm not going to talk about it, but this is coming in August, I think, is when Cheyenne has this planned for. Indy Valentine, if you don't know, is that tall book girl, though she doesn't do her YouTube channel anymore because she's focusing on authoring. And this will be her 4th book coming out. And I am a beta reader for her Atlanta Boy series. So I read this both like on vacation, and then when I got home, I'd finished it up and I sent her my thoughts. This one is going to be an accidental pregnancy. And I think the heroine is older than the hero. That is actually something I meant to ask her because the heroine is 36. And I think the hero is younger than her because he's a baseball player and is a younger guy on the team. So I don't know, but I enjoyed it a lot. I don't rate books that I beta read, but read that for her. Then there was Runaway Whirlwind by May Alder, and this was the Patreon read for June, so I won't talk about this one here, but this one was picked for a plus size MC. And this has daddy kink. This has a huge age gap, 37 and 18. The heroine runs away from a bad situation and ends up hitching a ride with a trucker, and they end up having an accidental pregnancy together. So I gave a very heated review of this to give you a hint on my Patreon. So that exclusive review is available now. Okay, then I had a DNF, and this is one that if you watched my video from yesterday, which was Somnophilia, which was actually fun to make again. That is only the second Somnophilia video I've done, and when I was looking into taboo videos I should make a second one of, Somnophilia is one of my most watched taboo videos I've ever made. And I hadn't made one since 2022, so definitely check that out. But one of the books I said inspired me to make a part 2 was this book. So the thing though is that I did DNF this book. It wasn't solely because of the Somnophilia, like I didn't mind that. It was more so just, I ended up not caring for the MC. And again, it wasn't solely his Somnophilia shenanigans, let's just say, that bothered me. It was just in general, I was like, I don't like him. And so the heroine, I kind of wanted someone to rescue her from him, right? And so it definitely is a villain gets a girl. It's super dark. There is literally a list of trigger warnings that, without exaggerating, think of them written in, like 18 times Roman. The list is this long on the page of the author's website, okay? So she fully tells you everything. And it isn't the kinky things. It's 2 parts specifically why I DNF'd it. Also, this book was like 540 pages, and I DNF'd at about 280 pages in. I gave this a solid half of the book. There was just certain parts that started adding up for me, okay? But just a quick overview, though. The King of Hearts is a morally black, dark romance where our hero is a stalker, and our heroine, I think, is like 20. He's not super old. I think he's like 26, 28. So, I mean, it's still an age gap, but like he's had his eye on her since she was 17, and now she's, I think, 20. Or no, she was just 18 and now she's 20, because he says at one point he's been watching her for 2 years. And I want to be careful too. I'm not going to tell you who he is, because that is a reveal. And at the point in the book where I was at, he had only just been revealed, right? And I was almost halfway in. So I don't want to spoil who he is. But he's a character who's watching her, and he has access to her, which again, you will figure out how as you go in. But it starts with our heroine asleep, and the hero is impregnating her while she's asleep. He doesn't tell us fully how he's doing that, but we do know that she's been drugged, that it's put in her like nighttime tea, and she's been drugged and left as a buffet for him, and he touches her everywhere. He finger fucks her, and but he won't take her virginity. There was even listed, this is called a hymen play, which kind of icks me out a little bit, but dark romance can do that, where he likes feeling around her hymen but not breaking it. Okay. But he then touches her everywhere, gets her off with his mouth while she's sleeping, and then he will ejaculate on her and push some of it in. Okay. So he is impregnating her in her sleep. All right. Again, you find out more about that as we go. But it starts out, and the chapters, when they change POV, are just titled him and her. Now, we learn her name. Her name is Savina. But again, we don't know his name until it is revealed to her and us. There are clues, though, as it goes. But she will wake up and she will feel like she's just had a very erotic dream, right? Somehow she doesn't notice that there's cum between her legs. She just thinks that she was coming in her sleep, I guess. I know, I'm sorry I'm being graphic, but if you can't stand me like talking about that, you don't want to read this book, okay? But again, none of that is what threw me off with this one, okay? But our heroine, she is a pretty dark girl herself. She does have dark fantasies. And one of the things I think some people will like is once she starts to learn more about her stalker and learn more pieces of it, she actually likes a lot of the things he does. Like I'll tell you a specific scene where he hasn't revealed who he is yet. He will show up as a masked man, and he starts revealing himself to her and like having her do things while he watches. There's one where he gives her a knife and has her like touch her body with the knife. Fuck herself with the edge, the like handle and the edge of the knife and stuff like that. So like there's some, and she's into that a lot. Like she is super hot for it and wants to know who this person is and everything. But then this book becomes I'll just tell you, like whoever this man is ends up revealing himself and revealing that she's going to marry him because he has blackmail info on her family. And surprise, she's already pregnant with his heir because he's been impregnating her in her sleep, and his child won't be born a bastard. So they're going to be getting married. Okay. So this is the level of the King of Hearts. And he's also called the King of Hearts because if there are any enemies she makes along the way, he will cut out their hearts and give them to her. Okay. So we're getting an idea of how dark this thing is. But all of that isn't why I had to back out of this one, okay? You will notice when you look up the trigger warnings, there is reference to, it's called something else, but it is a PDF file, but it's when it's not prepubescent, it's when it's something else. It's all ick. But our MC has had that happen to him, okay? And there's reference to child abuse and there's things like that. But as we see these flashbacks of what he went through as a young man, it eventually gets to he has an aunt who is raping him, okay? And there's also a reason why he's into somnophilia, and a lot of those things lead back to the abuse he had from his aunt. And these scenes and the things he's had to do are listed in graphic detail, okay? It isn't just referenced, it isn't alluded to. It is in some of the first scenes, which is why I was like, okay, this man has been through some serious trauma. We're showing why he's so depraved. Okay. But then there are scenes where the aunt is like, we fully see the rape scenes that are happening to him. And he talks about at times too of like, he hates how he gets hard at sick situations, and he blames that on his aunt and like all of these things. And it's disgusting, and it's in full detail. This is an illusion. It isn't you like, oh, this probably happened to him, but thank goodness I didn't have to see it, right? Like, your imagination can be worse than anything. No, sometimes what's on the page is worse than what I imagined it was. And that showed no signs of stopping. Like, every 4th or 5th chapter was one of these flashback scenes to these graphic things, okay? Now, again, that there's a full trigger warning list of this. The author is saying that they are in there, so it's not like it was lied to. But there's a fact of like, just because an author warns you that content's in a book, should it be in the book, okay? And I'm not meaning that as like, should it exist in the existential way. But it does make me think of like, I don't need some things in my head, right? That's what I mean. Like, that is what a trigger warning is for. You're being warned that, do you want this image in your head? And I don't want that. And I don't want to read about that. So I DNF'd it at 50% in, and I'm not giving it a rating, but I did write a partial review on Goodreads about like why it disturbed me. And that's the thing, like, I liked The Wild Man, but for me, there were no flashbacks to things happening to a child. Like, the hero, the MC in that one was assaulting the heroine, but she's fully of age. They're both fully of age. And that's a Tarzan scenario. So that was a book by this author that fascinated me. I couldn't look away. And though there was non-con scenes in it, there wasn't the added level of like a child involved in something, right? And in The King of Hearts, there's graphic child assault on page, and I don't want that in my head. I read enough of it as is that I was like, okay, I'm out. And so then we're reading assault that's happening to him, and then we're reading him assaulting his love, and I'm just like, no. So anyway, that's enough of it. DNF'd it. Highly caution you, but also I don't shame you if you are fascinated by said story. Man, there's so much conversation I could spiral into about it, but we'll stop. That's not for this one. We still have some books to get through. Just 2 more, actually. So then there was Dreams of a Dark Warrior by Cressley Cole. This one I'll just easily say, because I'm going to be on a book club tonight. The night I'm filming this on Saturday, so if you're watching on Sunday, you can go back to see it. But my wonderful friend Amber and my friend Helen, it's Amber's like read along, but Helen's been doing them like with her. And they've been rereading or reading for the first time, for them, I think it's for the first time, IAD, The Immortals After Dark. And when she announced the read along, I'd said, I'm not going to be able to reread all these books this year, but when you do Lothair, let me know. I would love to jump on. And so she's been doing 2 books a month, and so they're doing Dreams of a Dark Warrior and Lothair in the book club today. Now, Lothair I have read about 6 times. I can pretty much tell you scene by scene what happens in that book, so I didn't need to reread it, though I wish I'd had time to, because I always will read about the enemy of old. But I hadn't read Dreams of a Dark Warrior in a long time. But yeah, I won't go into what this one is about because it's literally book 11 in a series, so you can dive into the series if you want. But these are paranormal. This one is a Valkyrie and a reincarnating berserker who every time he finds his true love, once they have sex, he dies in a cruel and awful way. And we hope that this time around when they're meeting each other, they will get a second chance or a 5th chance, and it will work. So tune in to our live show to see about it. And check out Amber if you haven't. Like, she's wonderful. She did a lot of the Outlander read along with me. She helped me make it through. So I really wanted to pop in. Maybe I'll be able to pop in later in the year too for her read along. And I know that not everyone wants to reread those or read them, but she does have live shows for all of them. So maybe check those out and give her some support. Okay, now the last book that I read was Fall Into You by J.T. Geisinger. So, long story long, book 3 is finally coming out next Tuesday. Now, I had read book 1 when it came out, didn't love it, and I had started Fall Into You, and it just wasn't working for me. Like, I wasn't jiving with it, and so I put it on hold. I'd only read about, I think, 100 pages of it, and I put it down. But when book 3 was going to be coming out, I signed up for an ARC and I got accepted, but then that book kept getting pushed. And so I never made myself read the rest of book 2 because I was waiting for book 3. And now book 3 is coming and I have the ARC of it on my Kindle. So I needed to read Fall Into You. So Fall Into You is a one-night stand. Oopsie, now he's my boss. It's an eccentric billionaire. This was duet narrated by that was Dreams of a Dark Warrior. This is Jacob Morgan, Angelina Roca, and more. You know, like Troy Duran shows up, and some other character voices show up too. And so, yeah, this one was Shay and Cole. They have a one-night stand at a bar, and it is fantastic. They can't stop thinking about each other. Then she gets suggested by her friend that she try out for a PA position at this company, and she does, and she gets hired to work for the CFO, who ends up being Cole. And so these two, then he's like, did you follow me? Oh my gosh, which may sound very narcissistic, but once you find out like who he is and his family is, you're like, oh, did this woman try to insinuate herself into my life? But they begin then kind of this hidden relationship. On top of that, Cole and his family, they are connected with Killian Black. If you've read the beautiful, what can I say? Cruel Beauty or whatever. Beautifully Cruel, whatever it is. You'll know who Killian Black is and everything. And he also connects with the Queens and Monsters series. So there is ways that Cole kind of connects with that group and everything. So Killian Black does pop up a few times. So yeah, this one was very good. I wasn't a huge fan of the third act and how that went down. But honestly, though, listening to it definitely worked. J.T. Geisinger's stories are often very bonkers and larger than life and over the top. And I personally think that listening to them and the narrators perform it is the best way to go about it. It just helps me to really sink into the stories easier and be able to work with some of these really, as I said, bombastic situations in ways that it's difficult to do when I'm reading it with my eyes. So I hope that book 3 will not be as difficult because I do have an e-arc. I need to read it, but at least I'm intrigued going into it now. So okay, there we go. Those are the 12 books I read in the last 2 weeks. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel. Those are absolutely free ways to support me and also keep my content coming to you regularly. I put up 3 to 4 videos every week. Again, next week there won't be a weekly wrap up, but there'll still be the other regular 3 videos on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then there'll be a double weekly wrap up coming up the next week. So let me know if you've read any of these titles, if you're interested in any. Let me know what you think about some of the more controversial ones I've talked about. I'd love to hear that. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.